Welcome to episode 65 of AA Beyond Belief, the podcast. I'm your host, John S. Today we'll be speaking with Garth R. from Johannesburg, South Africa. Garth recently started a new secular AA meeting in Johannesburg, and we'll talk a little bit about that and the challenges he faced as he started the meeting. So here we go, folks. Another episode on the way. Hello, I'm speaking with Garth R. from Johannesburg, South Africa. How you doing, Garth?
Hi, John. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a nice day here in Kansas City. A little bit of rain falling, and it's cooled things down, which is kind of nice. And looking forward to chatting with you a little bit.
Okay, yeah, excellent. Thanks for asking me to do this.
Well, I was interested in talking to you because, I saw you post something about starting your group in South Africa, and I thought, well, this would be interesting to hear about. You know, what it's like starting a group over there. So I thought maybe you might want to share a little bit about your experience in AA, what led you to get into the program and then eventually start your group.
Yeah, well, it's my story is a pretty stock standard AA story, I guess. I mean, I started drinking when I was a teenager, and I drank because it helped me relax and it helped me fit in and whatnot. It's pretty much your classical story. And I drank for about 10 years, and I experienced the slow progression of the alcoholic condition. It started off really great, and then it was not so great, and near the end it was just really not great all of the time. So eventually I got to a point where a lot of really unhealthy things were happening to me. You know, there's the destruction of all my relationships, and I changed jobs quite a bit, and basically I get to that point of pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization that an alcoholic gets to, where there's no friendly direction to go, and the drinking's not working, nothing's working anymore. So I figured I needed to do something about this drinking thing. And I didn't really know Alcoholics Anonymous was in South Africa because I didn't see any promotional material or anything like that. But I knew one guy who was going to AA, and I figured, okay, well, I didn't really want to stop drinking, actually. I was just so miserable at the end that I just wanted to do something different. And this sounded like something different to do. And so I went to go speak to this guy, and a few days later, I was in my first AA meeting, and I was quite lucky because the meeting that I went to, it had a lot of young people there, and I kind of felt accepted and whatnot, and I kind of I slid into AA quite easily. On the way to my first meeting, the guy who took me to the meeting said that, well, he kind of told me what to expect. He said that I'm not going to like everybody in AA, that I just got to go to a few meetings and check it out, see if I like it. And he also mentioned that they talk about God a lot in AA, and that I shouldn't worry about it too much. Just go to the meetings, and we'll take care of the God stuff later. And my relationship with God up until that point was I don't know. It was I had certain philosophical convictions as a child. You pick things up from other people about Christianity and prayer and whatnot. And if you're a good child and you do certain things, then God will look after you and kind of stuff. And I bought into that as a child, but then I kind of veered away from it, became a little bit resentful towards this God thing. But then I figured, you know what, it really doesn't matter. I'm gonna carry on with my life. I would describe myself as an agnostic, and I didn't really put too much. But when I came to AA, they said, okay, well, there's this faith thing, and you need this faith thing if you want to get sober. So I was pretty desperate at the time, so I bought into it, and I did struggle with it a little bit in the beginning because it was a very alien concept to me. to place reliance in some sort of ethereal power that that I had left behind many, many years ago.
Right.
But I was desperate, so I made it work. And I actually bought into it in the state of desperation that I was. I bought into it quite heavily after a while.
Sure.
And I became your militant, big book thumping, running around preaching, find God or die kind of type. And you know, I kind of overcorrected. I became a little bit evangelical.
That sounds kind of familiar. How long were you doing that?
I did that. I'm 10 years sober now. Well, almost 10 years sober. And I did that. I was the militant thumper for about my first 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And then for about 2 years, I was kind of, I don't know, you know, things stopped making sense. You know, I started to struggle with things like finding a sponsor and, you know, some of the strange people that I'd met in the rooms. So for a couple of years, I was kind of starting my own meetings and hanging out at the fringes of AA.
Okay.
And then I'd say about a year ago, things flipped for me completely. I was standing in my kitchen. I'd been questioning the whole the God thing for a while. In particular, like, well, why did God single me out to get me sober when there's all this other stuff? I mean, that started to not quite make sense. I thought it was a little bit self-centered. You know, I'm the center of the universe. God's looking after me, but he's letting all these hundreds of thousands of people die. It stopped making sense. And I kind of believe that a person will only believe in something if it makes sense to them. And this just stopped making sense. And, you know, one day I was kind of standing in my kitchen. I was making coffee or something, and I realized, damn, I'm an atheist. So that was a little bit of a problem. Because I'm connected to there are no atheists here. Well, not at the time. At the time of the realization, there were no atheists around here.
Okay. In AA or is the culture in South Africa pretty religious?
I think the culture itself is quite religious. I hadn't met any, well, maybe that's not true, but it's not common to run into skeptics and atheists in the street. It's just not one of it. And then AA, of course, reflects that.
Sure.
So I had a little bit of a problem. I'm an atheist in AA. So what do I do? I'm now cut off from my physical fellowship.
Right.
Which presented quite a big problem for me in terms of isolation and you know, getting connected with people of like mind. And I wasn't finding the meetings very satisfactory. I would go into a meeting with like a problem, or I'd be discontented, and I just want to be in a safe environment. But then all I hear is like theological stuff that doesn't make sense to me anymore.
Isn't it funny how after you come to the realization that you're an atheist, how much more you pick up on the religious language in the meetings? That was kind of my experience.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had guys approach me and they're like, so you started a secular meeting, what's the problem? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of religiosity. There's a lot of, you know, religious vocabulary that we use in the meetings. It doesn't really make that much sense. And the guys look at me like I'm from out of space. And it doesn't quite make sense to them because they're in it. They don't notice it.
Right. And I actually had a conversation with someone. I went back to my old home group just for a meeting for whatever reason. And I was talking to somebody there who's not really a strong believer. And I told him about starting our group. And he said, well, who goes to those meetings? I said, well, you know, people who might not go to AA otherwise because of it, their perception of it being religious. And also people who have been, you know, offended or damaged by AA or, you know, and not welcomed. And he said, oh, I can't believe that would happen, that someone would not be welcomed. I said, well, it does happen. But he just couldn't see it because that's not his experience, I guess. So,
yeah,
anyway.
It's yeah, when you're surrounded by everybody that agrees with you, it's just, you know, I guess they develop kind of a blind spot to it.
Yeah.
But now that I have that other perception, I mean, it's very, very apparent to me. Yeah, I mean, there were times when I didn't want to go out to fellowship functions because I had serious problems, and I knew that if I asked anybody for advice, the kind of response that I would get back would be like, "Well, have you prayed about it? How is your
Oh, yeah.
relationship with God?" Kind of thing. So I didn't
So
find that
did you
very
kind of
useful.
like think through the program, and did you kind of like, from what I did when I had that realization, okay, I'm an atheist, I kind of looked at the program and I kind of came up with my own way of looking at it, my own view of it. Did you do that, or did that just how'd that take place? Like when you went to meetings, were you sharing differently than you were before?
Um, Yeah, there was I had a little bit of an advantage in that respect because part of the higher power concept that I developed when I came into AA was sort of a Taoist approach,
Oh, okay.
and the Taoist approach is like the natural order of things. So it has a secular element to it. So it was I had a little bit of a struggle adapting the program
Mm-hmm.
to a new perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it was as difficult as it could have been. So I was very action orientated. I always knew that it was more, well, my perspective is that it's more about the actions you take than the things that you believe.
Sure, I do. I
Uh,
believe that too.
yeah, so if you're doing stuff, you're going to meet. Like I saw a lot of people praying themselves sober, and they didn't stay sober. But I
Mm-hmm.
saw a lot of guys doing the footwork, going to meetings, doing the inventory, making the amends, and they were staying sober.
Yeah. Yeah. That was ultimately the conclusion I came to. Is I kind of went through the big book, and I was looking at it, crossing out all the God stuff, and what's left when you cross all that out is just the actions, the things that we do, and the sharing our experience with each other, helping each other. And I'm still kind of evolving on all of that. But so how long did you go through a period of discomfort before you started your group? And how long did it take you to
Yeah.
kind of get to that point where you were ready to start a secular meeting?
Well, I experienced discomfort in two separate ways. The first was the kind of cognitive dissonance of
Mm,
believing two different
right.
programs at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was a bit uncomfortable. I got through that in about say about a month or two, and
Mm,
then while I was figuring that out, I was also worried about the isolation from the fellowship because
mm,
I realized that there was a need to do something.
mm-hmm.
So I tried to put out an ad for a secular meeting that would meet at my house,
Mm-hmm.
but that didn't get too much traction. But then I met another atheist in recovery. She goes to a different fellowship,
Okay.
but she's very, very involved in the fellowship, and she's still interacting with a lot of the people. So and we kind of got together and we realized the need for a meeting. So
Mm-hmm.
when we tried to start it together, we had a lot more reach in the fellowship, and we managed to get hold of a lot more people.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to start the meeting successfully.
Good. How long ago was that?
That was about 3 or 4 months ago. It was,
Okay.
I think, March.
So you had a kind of a core group of people that helped start it out then.
Yeah, yeah. Most of them come from another fellowship, but
Mm-hmm.
they also identify as alcoholics.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that was kind of interesting too. When you were talking about on Facebook, you posted the flyer that you're putting out about the about your meeting, and you said that it's open. It's an open meeting, first of all, but you try to make it clear that you welcome people that have drug problems in addition to alcohol problems, or you that's kind of the sense I got from that, which is perfectly fine. Is that kind of how the approach that you're taking is like, I don't care if you're addicted to alcohol or whatever, you're welcome at this meeting?
yeah, because it's the only meeting of its kind in the country,
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to make it open. We wanted to make it inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So the formats that we use in everything, it's AA formats,
Right.
and we introduce ourselves as alcoholics, and yeah, we just it's an open AA meeting,
Sure.
and anyone is welcome to come through. So we encourage addicts to come through as well, but I mean, that they are very clear that it is an AA meeting, and they
Yeah.
identify as alcoholics. and they have a desire to stop drinking.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's kind of like a weird thing going on in AA, in my opinion, with certain people taking the I don't know what it is, the primary purpose or singleness of purpose thing a little bit too far. And I actually had somebody out here kind of police me once. She said, "Are you guys an AA group?" I said, "Of course we are an AA group. Why are you asking that?" "Well, I hear that you have non-alcoholics in your meetings." I said, "What are you talking about, non-alcoholics in our meetings?" And then she named the person. I said, "What?" "Well, he's a drug addict. He introduces himself as an addict, but he also has a desire to stop drinking." I'm like, "Wait a second. The guy has a desire to stop drinking. That's all it takes." And quite frankly, I have yet to meet a drug addict who didn't also understand that, didn't also have a desire to stop drinking, so I don't really see the point. I think they're taking it too far. And anyway, at this person's group, they almost had kind of like, an investigation of people, if they weren't, saying the right things, they was this kind of getting ridiculous. So anyway, my opinion.
Yeah, there does seem to be a little bit of elitism happening in certain groups. We had a big book meeting around here where there are duly addicted people that attend the meeting, and they were given the pamphlet Problems Other Than Alcohol, kind of a very, very subtle way of telling them that we know that they're different and they should go somewhere else, kind of a deal, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. Also, another thing about it is at meetings, it's not that often, at least from my experience here, that we talk about our use that much. It's most of the conversations that go on in the meeting are about the recovery side of it. Not a whole lot of whatever drug or drink we used. So I don't know. The whole thing kind of drives me crazy. But did you have a problem with that you had to overcome that, or was it a non-issue?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So did you, when you were doing this, because you were wanting to have if I remember the situation right, you were just wanting to have your meeting listed, and you had this pamphlet out there where you welcomed everybody in the recovery community, and I think that you had someone that had a problem with that. Was that a non-issue, or did you overcome that? Or how'd that play out?
Yeah, there was someone from my area office was a little bit confused because they thought we were trying to start a dual addiction meeting, and then they claimed that we couldn't do that, which of course is right, because it's a dual addiction meeting is a separate kind of fellowship. But we since he brought up that complaint, I mean, we verified that the wording on our pamphlets and our promotion material was in line with. We made it very clear that it's an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting,
right?
But still, they're hanging on to it, and it very much feels to me like they don't want to list our meeting, so they're looking for excuses not to list it.
Yeah, that might very well be. That seems to be happening in different. Every once in a while, some place will do that. They'll give the group a really hard time, but then they eventually give in and list them. But in the initial stages, I don't know why they just kind of do try to find a reason not to, which isn't right. But
no, not at all. So what we did is we complained to GSO here, and they said that, because I said, look, they're blocking the listing of the meeting, and we've got a complaint. I believe it was a punitive action, and that they were out of line. Mm-hmm. And GSO said, well, they can't really intervene. It's more for an issue with the Board of Trustees. So they're taking the issue to conference, which I think is insane, because no other group gets discussed at conference.
True.
So
that's interesting. So it's actually they're going to. So I'm assuming this is like the General Service Conference for your for South Africa, AA.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, and they're actually going to discuss your group and whether or not it should be listed at the conference.
Yeah, and what makes it very interesting is that we haven't been approached for our feedback.
Okay.
Yet.
So hopefully you'll be able to be represented there or represent yourself there.
Yeah, that's we're hoping for that.
Well, that's really interesting. And when does that take place?
That should happen in September.
Well, that's really interesting. I don't, it kind of reminds me of a situation actually in Iceland. When they were going to list that group, what was happening with them though? They were just kind of being stonewalled for a while. They weren't really getting an answer, or they were getting promises that they would be listed, and then they never got listed. But eventually, they broke down and listed them, and I don't know what the reasoning was behind that or not, but it was just. I think it's just ignorance. I think it's the people not really understanding what a secular AA meeting is.
Yeah, I can definitely understand. I can understand the resistance, and I can understand them not really wanting to dive into it.
Yeah.
So I do find it slightly bothersome, but I'm trying not to get resentful about it.
No,
because I kind of expect it.
Yeah, and you can survive without that being listed anyway. One thing I'd encourage you guys to do, if you haven't already, is to create a little website for your meeting, so that people can find you on the internet. But
yeah, we're going ahead with that now. It should be up quite soon. Actually.
Good. That will help a lot. And actually, when you have that, that's pretty much is what will help people find your meeting more than anything else. Because actually, when people are looking for a secular AA meeting, they're going to do the internet search looking for either secular AA meeting, agnostic AA meeting, atheist AA meeting, something like that. And that's how they're going to find you. Because if you were listed on your group, on your central office or intergroup website or whatever it is, it's not that easy for people to find you there. And a lot of people who already have the conception that Alcoholics Anonymous is religious and not for them, they aren't going to look there anyway. So that's, I think, going to be the best thing. And for you guys is to have that. I'm a big believer in that. That's what helped our group grow, I think, is our website. People find us that way.
Excellent.
So anyway, talking about a secular AA meeting and the people who might not understand what it is, what is your meeting like? You want to describe your meeting, the format, what you guys do?
Well, basically, we have our meeting outside. It's on a Wednesday evening, so it's dark when the meeting starts, and it's winter at the moment, but we're still having the meeting outside. And what we've done is every Wednesday we build a large bonfire.
Oh, nice.
And then there's about a dozen of us that sit around this bonfire. Sometimes we have guys in from the treatment center because a lot of them are still making up their mind about God, so they enjoy the meeting as well. And we have a 15 to 20 minute topic. And the topic is obviously recovery related. It's got to be relevant. And then when the speaker is finished, they select someone, and then that person tags the next person to speak for about 3 minutes, and it goes until everybody's done.
Well, that's not nice. So you have someone talk for like 15 or 20 minutes on whatever topic they come up with, I guess. And then you just go around and other people share based upon being chosen.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. And sitting by the fire too. That's really nice.
Yeah, it's quite a deep meeting actually, because it's outside and it's dark and there's a fire, and there's no evangelical kind of stuff there.
Right.
The guys are sharing very intimate, very close, very practical experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah.
So everybody that goes there says that it's an incredibly authentic meeting. There's no posturing and pretending you're something that you're not or anything like that. It's very real.
That sounds nice. That I kind of sense that from our meetings too. Is that there's some kind of freedom that comes from getting the dogmatic religious stuff out of the room, so that people can just talk about whatever they want to, and not have to feel like they have to use a specific vocabulary or sound, please anybody with what they have to say. That's been my experience anyway. So do you open like with the AA preamble? How do you open the meeting? Yeah,
we open with the AA preamble, and then we've got a slightly adapted preamble that we got from the secular AA website.
Uh-huh.
which is that we're not for or against any kind of atheism or religion or anything like that. We don't promote anything. We basically say that this is a neutral space.
And because believe.
Yeah, we had it in the beginning, which was to be expected, where guys are very like anti-theist kind of, they're getting it out of their system. They've got a couple of resentments, but that's calming down quite a bit, and it's becoming more of a safe.
Isn't that funny that no matter where you are in the world with a secular AA meeting, you always have that. We always have to go through that little bit of a phase.
Yeah,
of people having to get that out of their system.
Yeah, absolutely. But now that's starting to tone down a little bit because we're getting back on track. It's like we're here to help people who are having a problem with staying sober,
right?
Like in mainstream AA. And one of the things that I did mention to one of the mainstream AA guys that was asking me about the meeting is that guys can come into our meeting not believing in God.
Right.
And then they can find God there if they want.
Sure.
Because it's supposed to be a neutral space.
Right.
And then they can move out into mainstream AA if they want.
Right.
Or vice versa. So the neutrality is important.
Yeah. And how do you close the meeting?
We close with a responsibility pledge.
Okay.
Which is I am responsible.
Okay. Our group just closes by saying the meeting's over. We were gonna do the responsibility statement, but the group rejected it because they don't like having to recite. They don't like having. I guess they were afraid of having to recite it as a group or something. They're very standoffish about that kind of thing. Anyway, but that's cool. I like the responsibility statement. I think most groups close with that. So to me, that sounds like an AA meeting that you're having.
Yeah. It's we talk about alcoholism, and we all identify as alcoholics, and we observe the traditions. I mean, I've started at quite a few AA meetings. Well, not quite a few, but a couple of AA meetings. So I know what we can do and can't.
Yeah. So are you having people find you that have never been to AA or wouldn't go to AA otherwise?
Yeah, we had three or four people come to our meeting as their first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And, they thought it was cool. They also went to a couple of other meetings. But sure, we're still in the early stages, and we haven't, the only way we've been promoting our meeting is through word of mouth and on Facebook.
Right.
So with the website, that should definitely improve.
Yes, it will. Yeah, you guys it seems like you have a pretty vibrant community, just basically what I see on Facebook anyway. A number of you. And also, we have that online meeting on Sunday, too, that I've seen some of you guys at that, too.
Okay.
From South Africa. So
yeah, I haven't done the online meeting yet. I'm always busy on a weekend, but...
yeah, I am, too. It's hard for me to do it. Sometimes I'll go for a little bit, and then I leave early, but it's kind of nice. It's interesting to meet people from different places,
Yeah, well, one of the things that's been a huge help has been... the online community, the secular Facebook groups.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that, I don't know, I would have been completely isolated and not known what to do. So that was an incredible resource.
I know that truly is amazing. And it seems like it's growing daily, and I've been noticing too, more and more groups starting up outside of North America, which I find really encouraging, and more interest coming from groups outside of North America. Like somebody from Italy wrote us recently. That'd be cool to see a meeting start over there. So something's happening.
Yeah, it'd be great to break that language barrier. I mean, get meetings in other languages as well. That would be really cool.
I didn't ask you, how did you ever hear about these secular AA meetings anyway?
It was just from being involved in the Facebook community.
Oh, okay.
Because there's nothing like that here. There's nobody. I think I was the only one that was connected with secular AA,
right?
To my knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was it starts on the debate forums on Facebook. Where people question everything and they argue about everything, and then you kind of start picking up information like that, and then you kind of find out where to go.
Isn't that interesting? And then you meet one person who says, "Hey, there's this group, there's that." Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, fairly new to social networking, I guess they call it, or social network. Yeah, I'm fairly new to Facebook. I mean, for the last couple of years anyway. I guess not that new anymore. Been about 4 or 5 years I've been doing it now. But I never really had much of a use for it until I kind of got involved with the people in the secular AA world, and then that did kind of open up my horizons quite a bit. So, pretty interesting.
Cool. The cross-pollination of ideas and the transfer of information, it's been quite important.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you taking this time to chat about your group. I think it's fantastic. And we'll be posting this on the site fairly soon. I'm working out a schedule with Doris a little bit because we were kind of alternating where I was reducing the number of podcasts I would post, but I'm going to get back to doing more of them. So I should hopefully post this fairly soon. I'll let you know for sure when that happens. But I'm really glad that you took the time to do this because I was really kind of curious about how things were going over there, and it's kind of a selfish reason. It's kind of nice for me to get a flavor for what's going on in different places. And now I have this picture in my mind of your meeting gathered around a campfire under the night sky, and I want to go. That just sounds absolutely perfect. It's just like beautiful. All right.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me. And yeah, it was pretty cool. Thanks a lot.
Take care, Garth. Appreciate it.